They gave speeches, wore black, held hands, and stood over a casket with my name on it. But I was still breathing. The first time I saw my own funeral, I was in sweatpants, microwaving soup. My phone buzzed with a message from Aunt Rose, someone I hadn't heard from in years. No greeting, no explanation, just a line that hit like frostbite to the spine. "Emma, I'm so sorry, I didn't know, I thought you were gone." Gone. I opened the video she attached and nearly dropped the phone. It started with stained glass windows, soft organ music, a church I recognized, St. Matthew's. The place my parents dragged me to every Christmas back when pretending we were a normal family was still in style. Then the camera panned, slow, shaky, to a podium. My mother stood behind it in black lace, dabbing fake tears. My father, stiff beside her, one hand gripping the edge of the wood like it might give way. And behind them, a closed casket with a framed photo of me. Me, smiling in the exact blouse I'd worn in my last job interview. I couldn't breathe. Then I heard my sister's voice, soft, shaking, but performative. Emma always struggled, but we loved her, and now she's finally at peace. They buried me while I was standing in my kitchen, holding a spoon. They had cut me off so thoroughly, blocking my calls, erasing me from family gatherings, and spreading rumors I'd moved abroad, that they assumed no one would question my sudden disappearance. I didn't cry, I didn't scream, I just watched, frozen. In the one moment that split my life in two, before they tried to erase me, and the second I decided I'd never let them. I watched the video again and again, not because I didn't believe it, but because some sick part of me needed to see how far they went. The floral arrangements, the slideshow, the priest saying my name like it was already carved in stone. They called it a memorial service, no body, no cause of death. Just carefully worded phrases. She drifted away, she's free now, let's remember the good parts of her. Good parts, they'd spent years treating me like a stain they couldn't scrub out of the family name. And now, suddenly, I was some tragic angel. It felt like theater, no, it was theater. And the audience, old family friends, church ladies, my third-grade piano teacher, all crying into tissues. Whispering things like, "So young, she always seems so lonely, God rest her soul." My soul was fine, thank you, I checked my pulse, still there. So why did I feel like I was the ghost? I called my mother, straight to voicemail. Texted my sister, "Hey, weird question, am I dead?" No reply. I called Aunt Rose, she picked up in a whisper, "Emma," she said, her voice cracked, "Oh my God, you're alive." They told us it happened months ago, that you didn't want a funeral, just something small, quiet, peaceful. Peaceful, like erasing someone from the world could ever be that. I was shaking now, not with sadness, not with fear, with clarity. They hadn't just given up on me, they had officially replaced me with a lie. And it was time I brought the truth to the surface, even if I had to crawl out of my own grave to do it. The first thing I did was Google my name, not in a vanity way, not anymore. I typed it like a stranger might, Emma Lee Carter obituary. And there it was, a clean little death notice on my sister's Facebook page, dated 6 weeks ago. 300 comments, condolences, prayer emojis. One person even offered to watch the house while the family grieved. Under the post was a photo of me, cropped from a college graduation pic. And the caption, "We lost her, but heaven gained an angel." No cause of death, no date of death, just the performance of mourning wrapped in likes and digital sympathy. I took a screenshot and kept digging. It didn't take long before I found something worse. There it was, filed with the state, an actual death certificate. Name: Emma Lee Carter. Date of death: March 3rd. Cause: natural causes. Filed by Sharon Carter, my mother. Filed, signed, stamped, official. I wasn't just a rumor, I was legally dead. My hands started to tremble. I gripped the edges of the desk just to stop myself from vomiting. This wasn't just emotional cruelty, this was premeditated. There are rules, processes, paperwork. Someone had to submit that death certificate. Someone had to convince a government office that I had died without ever producing a body. Who does that? Who signs their daughter out of existence? I called the number listed on the document, the county clerk's office. The woman on the line sounded bored until I gave her my name. Pause. I'm sorry, ma'am, did you say your name is Emma Carter? Yes. Longer pause. I think you'll need to come in. That's when I knew this wasn't an accident, it wasn't a mistake, it was a cover-up. A financial move, a purge, and they never thought I'd live long enough to see it unravel. The clerk's office smelled like lemon cleaner and old envelopes. The woman behind the counter couldn't stop staring at me, not in a rude way. In a terrified, I'm seeing a ghost kind of way. She pulled up the record again, same certificate, same lie. Then she whispered, like we were in church, your file was flagged, something didn't add up. But your mother, she insisted, she said there was no autopsy, said it was private family business. I leaned in. How did she even do it? No body, no hospital, no death certificate from a coroner, just paperwork. The woman gave me a name, a retired notary, someone who'd signed off on the documents. He's old school, been doing this for 40 years, you didn't hear it from me. I found him in a little law office above a hardware store, gold-lettered window, dusty blinds. The kind of place that smelled like burnt coffee and paperwork from 1992. He looked up as I stepped in, didn't flinch, didn't look surprised. Miss Carter, he said, I was wondering when you'd show up. My skin went cold. You knew I was alive? He nodded slowly. Your mother told me you had passed, but I never saw proof. No coroner report, no medical statement, just a typed note and a lot of urgency. She said you didn't want to be remembered, that you wanted it quiet. I laughed, once, short and bitter, and you just believed her? He sighed, I didn't believe her, I believed she'd made you disappear, that's not the same thing. Then he opened a drawer and pulled out a folder. Inside, a revoked medical power of attorney, a trust amendment signed 2 days after the death. And a letter from my grandmother's old lawyer, marked undelivered. You were written out of the will, Miss Carter, quietly, the same week you supposedly died. He looked at me then, not with pity, with something like guilt. They didn't just bury your name, they buried your future. I stood there, holding the folder like it weighed 1,000 pounds. That was the moment I stopped being confused, stopped hoping it was a misunderstanding. Stopped thinking maybe one of them would call and say it was all a mistake. No, this wasn't a funeral, it was a hostile takeover. And I was done playing dead. The invitation was a mass text, polished, formal, like they were inviting people to a garden wedding. You are warmly invited to a remembrance reception for our beloved Emma Lee Carter. Casual attire, light refreshments, no gifts, just memories. I stared at the screen, they were throwing a party for my death. A catered wake for the daughter they erased. I checked the date. Saturday, the location, the Carter estate, the same place I grew up. The same place I hadn't been welcome in for nearly 4 years. No RSVP option, no contact info, just a time, a place, a performance. I called the venue, a private events firm my family used for fundraisers. Gave them a fake name, asked if they had the guest list finalized. They did, and my name wasn't on it. Of course it wasn't. Dead girls don't get invites. But I didn't need one. I drove to the estate that Saturday, parked half a block away, and waited in my car. From the outside, everything looked normal: balloons, canapes, jazz trio playing in the backyard. I watched as they greeted guests with tight hugs and tears they could switch on and off like a faucet. My sister wore white, not black, some twisted attempt at purity or rebirth. My mother looked thinner, sharper, a diamond brooch glittering on her collar like a warning. I waited until the first round of speeches had started, until the wine was poured, until the crowd had gathered under the white canopy strung with fairy lights and fake sympathy. And then I walked through the side gate. No announcement, no trumpet, no dramatic gasp, just footsteps. One by one, they turned, and it was my father, of all people, who saw me first. His mouth opened, like it might form a word, but nothing came out. Because what do you say to a daughter you legally declared dead when she walks into your living room breathing? I didn't raise my voice, didn't storm in, didn't cry or collapse or demand explanations. I just walked toward the center of the crowd, like I was supposed to be there, because I was. This was my funeral, after all. People froze mid-sentence, a fork clattered to the floor. The jazz trio stopped playing mid-note. My mother's hand fluttered to her chest. My sister backed up, like she'd seen a corpse drag itself out of the soil. Which, in their story, I had. My father, always the quiet one, finally found his voice: "Emma." I tilted my head. "You recognize me? That's sweet. Wasn't sure if you'd edited me out of your memory too." A collective breath held, then my mother tried. Oh, she tried. "This is a misunderstanding. You weren't," no one said. I pulled out a manila envelope and held it up like a priest offering communion. "Death certificate, filed under your name, trust amendment 2 days after that." And the best part, a letter from Grandma's lawyer, marked return to sender. Gasps, one woman actually stepped back and crossed herself. "You lied," I said, voice steady. "You staged my death for profit." Someone started recording. I didn't care. "And I'd like to know how you explained filing a death certificate with no body." Silence, not metaphorical, literal. You could hear the wine in people's glasses settle. Then, finally, my sister, ever the actress, tried her monologue. "You were gone, you left us, Emma, you disappeared, we didn't know where you were. I emailed you on your birthday, you were unstable, you said you didn't want contact. I said, I wanted space, not to be buried." Another silence, and this one heavy, final, like dirt landing on a casket. "I didn't come here for revenge," I said. "I came here to remind you, dead girls don't walk, but I do." And with that, I set the envelope down on the dessert table, right between the lemon bars and the funeral guest book. I didn't need to slam the door, I didn't need to scream. I just walked out, back through the gate, past the same hydrangeas I planted in 8th grade. Past the neighbor's porch where we used to carve pumpkins, and into a world where I was no longer a ghost. Behind me, chaos bloomed. Voices rising, chairs scraping, glass breaking, probably the wine flute my sister had been clutching like a lifeline. I got into my car and drove, no music, no destination, just air conditioning and a heartbeat that finally felt like mine again. By the time I got home, my phone was vibrating nonstop. It started with a private message. "Emma, I'm sorry if this is weird, but were you just at your own funeral?" Then came the clip. Someone had posted it, a 92-second video. Me standing in front of that crowd, holding up documents, delivering the line that split their lies like lightning through glass. Dead girls don't walk, but I do. It had 14,000 views by the time I opened it, 86 comments, dozens of reposts. I scrolled in disbelief as strangers chimed in. This is the coldest comeback I've ever seen. She didn't just walk into her funeral, she owned it. Petition to make Emma Carter the face of poetic justice. Even people from my past chimed in, old classmates, co-workers, a former roommate. Wait, this Emma? I always knew her family was off. By midnight, it hit local news. By dawn, a reporter was at my doorstep, asking if I wanted to share my side. I didn't say yes, but I didn't say no. Because it wasn't just my family who saw me now, it was everyone. A fake obituary they wrote in lies had been rewritten by a video, by truth, by me. I always thought justice came with flashing lights or courtroom showdowns. Turns out, sometimes it comes in a manila envelope with postage and a tracking number. 3 days after the video went viral, I received a call, not from my family, from a state investigator. Miss Carter, we need to talk about a death certificate filed in your name. She wasn't dramatic, she didn't gasp when I said I was alive, she just asked for documents. I sent everything. The forged death certificate, the trust fund changes, the notarized lie. And then I filed my own paperwork, petitions, revocations, fraud claims. The notary who had just followed instructions was now under review. The firm that filed the will amendment was being audited. And my parents, they were no longer speaking to the press. They'd switched from mourning to damage control so fast it gave the public whiplash. A reporter called their behavior financial euthanasia. Another called it identity homicide. I wasn't just a headline, I was a case. The trust fund my grandmother had left, supposedly split between remaining family, was frozen pending review. A lawyer representing the estate called me privately. If half of what you're alleging is true, he said, your parents are going to wish you really had died quietly. And I didn't feel guilty, because this wasn't revenge, it was correction. This was for the girl who was edited out of photos, who was silenced in group chats, who watched her own funeral on an iPhone screen. That girl was gone now, but I wasn't. And this time, the paperwork was going to work for me. The trust was reinstated, my name restored. The legal vultures backed off, their claws dulled by court orders and signatures they never thought I'd live to contest. There were headlines for a week. Daughter declared dead Sue's family for fraud. Ghost of inheritance past. Buried by blood, resurrected by law. But when the final ruling came down, when I stood in the clerk's office holding the official notice that my grandmother's original will had been reinstated, I didn't feel the fireworks. No swelling music, no slow clap, just silence and breath and peace. The money didn't matter, not really, don't get me wrong, I wasn't giving it back. But it was never about that. What mattered was this. They tried to erase me, replace me with a story that painted them as tragic, devoted, grieving souls. And I shattered it, not with screaming, not with vengeance, with proof, with presence. With the audacity of being alive. I stood in the living room of the home that once pretended I didn't exist, and I didn't feel rage, I felt done. I didn't need to live there, didn't need them to say sorry. Didn't need a tearful reunion or some overplayed redemption arc. What I needed, what I won, was my name, my history, my voice that they couldn't take. That I reclaimed. Inheritance wasn't the real victory, survival was. And the quiet, undeniable knowledge that no matter how deeply they buried me, I knew how to dig. I came back one last time, not to the house, not to the courtroom, to the place it all started. My grandmother's grave sat on a quiet hill outside town. No marble angels, no family crest, just a stone with her name and the words, "She never backed down." She hadn't, and now neither had I. I brought fresh violets, her favorite, and a copy of the document they tried to hide. Her original will, with my name written in bold, clear ink. I laid it down beside the flowers. They tried to bury me, Nana, I said, but I made sure they were the ones exposed. The breeze was soft that day, like a thank you, like a whisper that said, I knew you'd come back. I didn't cry, I smiled. Because in the end, it wasn't the money, the name, or the legal win that gave me peace, it was truth. I'd been erased, declared gone, eulogized in front of strangers. But now the truth had a heartbeat, mine. They planned my funeral, wrote the speeches, cried for a version of me they had already discarded. But I wasn't dead. I walked in breathing, and I walked out with something more powerful than revenge. I walked back up it in silence, and this time, I didn't knock. The next morning, I returned with the estate manager, Mrs. Langley. A woman who'd worked here since I was 5. She met me at the side door, hands wringing her apron. I always knew you'd come back, she whispered. I didn't, I replied, handing her a new contract. But I'm here now. In the sunroom, Victor sat alone, robe pressed, face unreadable. He looked older than I remembered, smaller. I suppose this is where you ask us to leave, he said, without lifting his eyes. I shook my head, no, not yet. His brow lifted, just barely. I want a few things moved out of storage, I said. The swing from the backyard, my mother's records. And my name, put it back on the house title where it always belonged. He didn't protest, he just nodded slowly. And for the first time in my life, he said something honest. You were always the strongest, we just didn't know how to love that. I didn't answer, there was nothing left to prove, only things to build. The ceasefire didn't last long. 3 days after the dinner, I received a letter. Thick, embossed, wrapped in arrogance. Victor and Claudia were petitioning to contest the deed in probate court. Claiming undue influence, mental decline, and fraudulent reinstatement. They were grasping at ghosts. Their attorney was new, flashy, loud. He sent over an aggressive notice demanding a deposition and temporary hold on the estate transfer. I didn't flinch, I'd already retained Alexis Lynn. A quiet storm of a litigator who'd once dismantled a billion-dollar real estate dynasty in court. And did it wearing ballet flats. She read the letter, smiled once, and said, let them come. In court, it didn't take long. The audio tapes, the 2 original deeds, Monroe's sworn affidavit. Even Claudia's voice, recorded, instructing the staff to never let Evelyn back in. The judge's ruling was swift and brutal. The court finds the actions of the respondents to be both fraudulent and malicious in intent. The deed stands, sole ownership remains with Miss Evelyn Hart. Outside the courtroom, press snapped photos. A reporter shouted, Hart, will you be pressing charges? I paused, no, I'm not here for revenge. But I wasn't there for reconciliation either. Victor didn't look at me as they walked out. Claudia did, and for the first time, she looked afraid. Not of exposure, but of irrelevance. I didn't follow them, I had a home to return to. One they no longer belonged in. The offers came in faster than the lawsuits. Developers, luxury hotel chains, historical trusts. All eager to sink their teeth into the Hart estate. Now that it had made headlines. One proposal came in at $18.7 million. With promises of preserving the architectural soul. While turning the house into a retreat center for CEOs. I didn't even finish reading it. Because what they wanted was the house. But what I'd taken back was history. I walked the halls one morning with a cup of black coffee. Just like my mother used to. She'd play jazz on the old record player and hum along. while folding laundry in the sunroom. Her old records were still in storage, dusty but intact. I had them cleaned, cataloged, and restored. The house started humming again. And then I did something no one expected. I opened one wing of the estate to serve as a women's refuge. Named in my mother's honor, the Marigold Wing. For women cut off, discarded, erased. The plaque out front reads, "To those who were told to disappear. You deserve doors that open." Victor never visited. Claudia sent one last letter, unsigned, just a check. I donated it to the shelter and mailed the receipt back. Some things can't be bought, and some homes can't be sold. The estate didn't need new marble or rebranding. It needed memory, and I remembered everything. I no longer needed their silence to scream my worth. The newspapers had moved on, the lawsuits had ended. But my story, the real one, was only beginning. I wasn't the same woman who walked out 9 years ago, with a suitcase and shame stitched into her spine. That Evelyn had been erased. This one rewrote herself. I started small, restoring the kitchen tiles by hand. They still had flour stains in the grout from the last pie my mother ever baked. The first time I knelt down to clean them, I cried. Not out of grief, but relief, because I was finally allowed to remember her in color. Word spread about the Marigold Wing, donations came in, volunteers followed. One of them was Tessa. She brought coffee every Sunday. And never asked for credit. "You never said thank you," she joked once. "I didn't have to," I said, "you stayed when it mattered." I hosted my first dinner at the estate the following winter. Not a gala, not a fundraiser, just a long table, good soup. And people who saw me as Evelyn, not a headline. At the end of the night, someone asked if I ever missed them. The people who cast me out. I looked toward the window, where snow fell. Just like it did the night I returned. "No," I said, "I don't miss ghosts." I smiled, and this time, I wasn't pretending. The snow had started again, soft this time. Like forgiveness, if you believed in that kind of thing. I stood beneath the old willow tree in the back garden. The one grandfather planted the day I was born. Its branches still bent toward the earth. Like it had been waiting for me all this time. The wind was cold, but I didn't pull my coat tighter. I wanted to feel everything. They buried me in silence, but I returned with truth. Not to shame them, not to impress them. Just to remind them, and myself, that erasure only works if you let it stick. I didn't come back to reclaim a house. I came back to become someone no one could steal again. The kind of woman who doesn't need a seat at their table. Because she's building her own. The kind of woman who knows legacy isn't marble or money. It's what you leave standing after everyone else walks away. The camera pulls wide. Evelyn walks alone through the garden. No more shadows, no more whispers. Only the sound of boots and snow. And somewhere in the distance, the faint hum of jazz. Playing from the open window of the sunroom. You don't have to burn bridges to leave. Some of us just outgrow what was never meant to hold us. They never expected to see me again. But I didn't come for them, I came with the deed.